Hey guys, you know that we've started to play a lot of 1.5, and for the tactics videos, sometimes they're a little bit niche and looking at very specific rules, which we're going to get into with things like skirmishes being charged, skirmishes charging skirmishes, pretty much anything skirmish, as people have put in the comments. And from this game, there will be an example of that was incredibly mind-boggling about how it would work, and I don't think anyone felt happy about it. However, we are going to start looking more at what necessarily aren't tactics so much, maybe tactics, but also strategic. So, my understanding, strategy is your overall plan. And for example, you might think you bring an army, and what's the default way that you would deploy in every game? That's a strategy. What's the overarching ways that your units work together? And tactics tend to be those in isolation. So, a situation emerges and you make a decision in a tactical scenario. So we tend to focus on those very isolated things and then show you the battle reports, but we do feel like we need to sort of start to give more complex scenarios, particularly in 1.5, where there are more moving parts, but the game is better in my mind, and the game is almost simpler in my mind as well. So to look at that, on the screen, you'll have to forgive the blurriness of the strategic locations in the middle, but it is the scenario drawn battle lines for this is the map for the event that I've registered to play on the 27th of September, 2000 points, Grammarly combined arms, 1.5 rules. And you've got those three strategic locations in the middle. You can see hills in both deployment zone and forests and what are impassable terrain in the shared space. Why I want to bring this up is I want to talk about strategic locations today because I think they are good for the game and they change the way the game is played. I think the idea that infantry are a lot better is not something that I've seen yet. However, because of the need to move forward, the games are more killy, which is great. You've heard us talk about that a lot on the channel. And in the battle report for this game, nearly every model dies. Again, Paddy and I go at it, hammer and tong. Then underneath that, what I'm finding is the way that you have to play, it involves a bit more risk. And that's sort of what happens in the examples I want to show specifically, where you could argue that perhaps in trying to take the scenario points, they were overplayed. So it's worth noting that the old Hammer series run by Western Sydney Wargamers have adjusted this to make the strategic locations you gain what's called a battle point if you've ever played tournaments at the end of each round. So one player turn each, not at the end of each player turn. And the differential for a battle point winning without winning scenario points is 250 kill points in the game. That's a lot. If you listen to our interview with Val, we spoke about how, well, he mentioned specifically that maybe even though 30 points a turn feels like a lot, it's not a lot for armies that are capable of killing a lot of models. We found that 250 points was a lot and meaningful. And in this sense, it was the aggressor who was somewhat penalized. And that will be obvious in the battle report. So, to get to it, I just want to thank our major sponsor, Pandemwargaming. We've been spruiking those products for a while now. Terrain bases. You can talk to Jeff following the link at the affiliate link in the description. It helps give a bit back to us as well, which we always appreciate. He will be able to custom make bases and terrain and other wargaming accessories for you. And then, of course, our 2 Plus supporters, some of them who've been here for a long time. It helps greatly. Any sort of financial support helps us to pay for the costs of additional equipment and incentivizes us to put out more videos. So thank you very much. So on to it, after I was playing Demons, and you can see just off here beneath the crystal column is an objective marker. That's the central objective. To the left, behind these pink arrows, is another objective marker. So these are the two, the center and the leftmost one. On the right, over here, you can see the Boar Boys are close to one. Paddy is playing Nomadic War. So I set up my pink horrors so they were pretty much they were claiming that objective from the get-go. On the second turn, however, though, I decided to move my Furies because I had to counter. I decided to move the Furies, which I'm now playing 12 of, which is highly unusual, or my Demonettes to take the other objective to try to bring Paddy's units towards me. And I decided that the demonettes were better because if there was any trouble, I would be able to run away a lot further. The Furies also, being a bigger unit, I'd stretched them out in a way that they were preventing Paddy's kick-nick Wolf Riders from hitting my backline. So that in itself is going to be another video. But what was interesting was in deciding to do this, so the center objective is probably going to be the one where units are most vulnerable. I had to put the demonettes forward into a position that I'm not usually comfortable putting a light cavalry position up with. And you could probably say this was a mistake. So what ends up happening is his goblin shaman, who's behind the giant to begin with, had Ruby Ring. A lot of people think Ruby Ring might not be as good as it was before. The threat is still going to be good, and he was able to cast it successfully. I was not in range to dispel it and failed my fated dispel, and I think he rolled 8, ended up killing 4, and I'm left with 2 demonettes. So I'm now no longer even scoring the objective, and they're stuck in the middle. If you'd like to know what happened next, I thought, well, Demonettes still have an enormous move range. I think they're pretty good against a Goblin, and I thought I'd go after him with their 360 charge range, and the Ruby Ring got the rest of them the turn after. So you thought you might be rid of it, it's still here. I guess the point I want to make with that first set of objectives is in taking, you might argue, oh, you need a different type of unit. So yes, absolutely. I agree. And that's my 500 points of core right there. I don't think it's particularly bad, but some armies are going to struggle to hold infantry, hold objectives, sorry. And I think in this instance, yep, that middle objective is going to be contested more often than not. And I should have probably left it and waited until other units had come across because I doubt that his boar boys were going to come across and sit on the objective. I thought I could get cheap points. I was wrong. Interestingly, Paddy also had a similar situation. So if you see those boar boys, they ended up charging forward, killing a unit, swinging back around, and then coming across most of the board to hit that pink horror unit, which with the keeper had been able to deal with the wolf riders who'd come on earlier. They annihilate the horrors pretty quickly and sit on that objective. Now, at this point, because he's killed them all, has the choice to either overrun past my keepers. I think maybe it would have been into the keeper, but he could continue to move forward and stay on the objective, or look to get out of the way, reform, and try to move away from the objective. So Paddy chose to stay, and the talk was, well, it's 250 points if he leaves. At this point, we had tied 2-2 on battle points, and this was the tie-breaking one. So he was going to gain 250 kill points or an extra battle point in the tournament, which is a big, very big deal if you don't play events, by staying on the objective, which is what he chose to do. However, that meant the keeper was able to hit him in the rear, and my 2 Blood Crushers, which had survived earlier, if you'd watched the tactics on Vortexes, had been able to hit the front, and while they died, they took a lot down with them, and the keeper hit on Spectral Doppelganger again and really put the unit to the sword. So with the bonus, one day we'll talk about hitting in the rear, but my God, +2 combat res for getting in the back is a big deal. I was able to win that combat easily and drive them off the objective in the end. So with those 2 examples, if you have started to play games, there's a lot of theorizing about how this might work in this format. And everyone imagines an enormous block of infantry that gets on the objective and just stays there forever, or is going to be fought by other units of infantry in isolation. I don't think that's the case at all. You're going to find that there are different types of ways of attacking objectives. There are going to be objectives that you just try to touch, like the Demonettes, and take risks, which didn't pay off, like the Demonettes or the Seekers. And then on top of that, you're going to find that the objectives create this sort of moth to a flame effect where there is now a lot more flanking and a lot more big combats, which are great because people will fight over an objective, and it doesn't just draw those 2 scoring units, it draws the other powerful units like your hammer units, which the keeper is certainly one of, and the juggernauts wish they were. And they're going to want to get in and cause as much damage as possible, and whoever wins is going to have a huge advantage. Interestingly, for us at this point, the scores for claiming objectives have been pretty even, and it's not really fighting over them. We look at the end of the game and go, oh, that's not where the game was won or lost. But maybe it's the just by creating these centers of combat, other things are happening around the game, and you've got to be cognizant, like I probably needed to be with the Seekers, of being a bit more patient to be able to hang on to create the type of combat I was able to create at the end here. So hopefully you guys are getting games in like us. I think it's an exciting time to be playing Warhammer. It's certainly the match play guide has reinvigorated my interest in competitive Warhammer. If you're learning anything from this channel, please reply below. If we make mistakes, we're always happy to be corrected and put any ideas you have for future videos down there as well. Thanks again, guys, for watching. We'll see you next time.